Here's a string trimmer. Take the air cleaner off. This has two pieces of air, two types of air cleaner. It's got a foam. This is a pretty porous foam. It's a pre-filter. And then it has a cotton. And the cotton is a really fine filtration system. And so it'll plug up pretty fast. So we want to filter as much as possible before we plug this up. A lot of people, when they bring them in, only have one filter. Either this one or this one. If they have this one, you're ingesting dirt into your engine. If you just have this one, the life expectancy will be dramatically shortened. So don't do that. We got to try to see if we can get some two-cycle stuff here. What I was going to do with this one is actually keep this thing running. This particular string trimmer doesn't have one of those primer bulbs on it, and so I can't prime it. If it has a fuel diaphragm that's starting to get weak, it'll take a lot of pulling to get this thing to start, and a lot of times your needle and seat might get stuck. And actually starting with gas will actually get it ripping well enough that you can draw some fuel up in there, and it'll actually lubricate it enough to unseat it and stick it and cause it to actually start. And so the other thing is, I can tell, is this problem a gasoline carburetor problem or is it electrical? If I squirt fuel in here and I pull that rope and it fires up, my whole electrical system has to be right. That means my switch up here has to be right, my spark plug has to be right, my ignition system, everything has to be working in order for this to start up. And if it will not start, but will start with this little syringe, I'm going to go look at the carburetor or fuel related issues to see what the problem is. And so it's a quick way of splitting the engine in half and saying electrical, fuel related. Which way am I going to go? We're going to go inside and we're going to look at some diesel engines. Whether it's a big engine or little engine, there's some distinctive features, and we're going to look at some cold starting aids, things that you need to understand in order to start it. This is a little Kubota diesel. If you look right here, there's a wire coming up over the top, and there's a strap, a thin metal strap with two nuts on it. These metal straps and these two nuts go to the glow plugs. And so if you're trying to start something and it doesn't start, figure out what its cold starting aid is. If you lift the hood and you look down and you see these nuts, one on each cylinder, then it has glow plugs. And so look for whatever feature activates the glow plugs and turns them on. And we're going to go look at how they activate inside the building. The other thing I want to look at real quick is this John Deere here. This is a Kawasaki. Kawasaki's are notorious for not starting without choking. And so when I'm up here, the choke is actually on the throttle. When I go up here to choke, I want to look down and make sure that the wire that goes to the choke actually moves. The most common problem with these is that bracketry gets out of adjustment. Person puts it in choke, thinks he's choking it, cranks and cranks, and it won't start. It's not in choke. And so there's a wire that goes down there, and if you put it in choke and you push on it, it should be at the end of its stroke. This one here is not. I can actually move it further, which means it's not fully choked. I'm going to have problems trying to get this thing to start, and it has to be choked. The other distinctive feature is going to make this a better quality engine. If I'm looking at quality of engines, when I look at an engine and it has an oil filter on it, that tells me it has pressure lubrication. I have to have pressure lubrication to have an oil filter. And the fact that I'm filtering the oil means that this is a valuable enough engine that they're going to put that extra feature on there. And that will be the distinguishing feature between two engines. And we'll talk a little bit more about those kind of distinctive features. But when I look at an engine, I want to see what kind of quality. Is it a commercial engine, industrial, or is it just a low end? One thing I always ask is, does it have pressure lubrication or just like a splash, dipper, slinger type oil lubrication system? Because it's a deciding factor between higher quality or lower quality. And so we'll look more at that later. This is a head off of one of these engines. And so this is what a glow plug looks like if you take it out. It's similar like to a spark plug. It's going to be threaded in. It's not a spark plug because it doesn't have a gap. But if I hook this up to electricity, this will glow. And it'll actually turn glowing red, and I'll actually demonstrate that for you. But it goes straight in right here. This is where my fuel injector goes. if you were actually take the head off and look at it, right here is where the flame comes out. This is an indirect type injection. The injector shoots fuel in, it goes right past the tip of that injector, and it starts the flame. The the glow plug creates a hot spot for that fuel to start burning, and that flame that started will come out this hole and flow across the top of the piston. The difference is we're going to talk about, this is indirect injection, that one over there will be direct injection, which means the injector will shoot right on top of the piston. So that's kind of the distinguishing feature I'm looking at here. This glow plug, that fuel injection nozzle actually shoots fuel and it hits the tip of this thing.